Update 33, Ascending Tides, launched March 14th on PCs and is coming March 29th on consoles. What you need to know about hybridization is simply this. Your stats now matter what is the highest, not if it's just magic, not if it's just stamina. Meaning if you're playing a stamina-based character and you're using a magic-based skill, it doesn't matter if your magic pool is low and your spell damage is low. As long as you have one snap pool very, very high, that magic-based skill that used to heal like a noodle is now going to hit like a truck. So it's actually quite simple. You're still going to stack one max stat, whether you're in PvE and PvP, stamina or magicka. It just allows you to use your off stat that you're not using and still be very, very effective. You're talking healing, damage, utility, speed, and so on. For the average player, if your build still works, it will still work in this latest update. Now you're just going to have options. Let me explain your options and some differences per class that you might not have thought of. Okay, I'm on my Stamina Templar PvP build. The biggest change you should know in PvP is basically stamina builds get access to really powerful burst heals, while magic builds get access to really powerful executes if they don't have them. For instance, my Templar still uses a 2H on the front and on the back restoration staff. And you can see here, Honor the Dead. Look at the tooltip, 11,000 healing. So the lower the health they get, the higher the heal is going to be with some of the Templar passes and others. I was able to crit heal someone on a Templar for 20,000. So the hybrid changes in PvP on this build, at least, and pretty much all my other stamina builds, are using a back bar restoration staff, using Resolving Vigor, kind of like rapid regen in magic builds, and then a burst powerful heal like Honor the Dead, or something else in your class kit to combine with the heal over time here. It's a very strong combination. Not to mention that there's so many juicy passives in the restoration staff skill line, like this one here, Essence Drain. You get major mending for 4 seconds after a completely fully charged heavy attack. So a lot of the PvP builds are going to be using this because of the passives, because of the active skills like this Life Giver here. You can also find another burst heal with Blessing of Protection if your class doesn't have one. And you can combine a really strong heal over time like Resolving Vigor with the burst heal, just as much burst healing as a magic PvP build. So what about magic Templar DPS? I really don't see it changing that much in what you would use and why, both in terms of gear and skills. Bahases, Narayaneth, in either Deadly Strikes or War Maiden is what I use in actual content, not parsing. And my bars are going to stay pretty much the same. You have a couple different options of what you do on the back bar. So Unstable Wallfire is currently what I use. Now, I tested a couple of different things, but actually playing in content, I did not find Stampede to be that effective. Stampede on the back bar with a VMA 2H will actually outperform Unstable Wall, but it really feels like only a parsing environment thing because at a cost of 4,300, and if a mob moves or you're moving in a trial, having to reapply that, you're constantly out of stamina. Not to mention that I have a high stamina cost ability here, Barb Trap 2,500. So you're constantly basically maintaining about 7,000 stamina when your pool is only around 12,000 or so. So I would say stick with your magic builds, what you have. What I did switch to is dual wield on the front and melee in almost all my magic builds. I still prefer a little bit of range on my Sorcerer and Nightblade, but the dual wield setup produces way more damage, partly because of twin blade and blunt. Each dagger increases your crit chance rating by 812. That right there allows you to use different traits. So your main hand can be either Nern or Precise. Your offhand can be charged with a fire damage glyph or even a poison if you want. So it's already kind of hybridized. A lot of my magic builds are now going to play dual wield on the front and destruction staff on the back, and I'm not going to run Stampede or Deadly Cloak with Black Rose prison weapons because that's too hard to maintain the stamina in actual live combat. Let's switch gears, talk about the Dragonknight next, which a couple morphs might change for you. So now we're on my hybrid stamina DK PvP build, and this changed pretty significantly. So the first change up is Burning Embers. Now it heals you every second for the damage done, not at the end of the duration. So on my Stam PvP build, I actually like this morph more. It can get anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 heals per second. So that's really good for consistent heals over time in both PvE and PvP. So if you don't have Pale Order in PvE, consider taking Burning Embers even on a Stam DK. Now I have two options in what I pick from Searing Strike. Venomous Claw on a mag DK is the better of the two morph, because if you read it, the poison seeps in the target and deals increased damage the longer it lasts, dealing 17% more damage every 2 seconds. So actually we parsed this out and did Burning Embers versus Venomous Claw on a magic DK. Venomous Claw almost 2x, almost doubled the amount of DPS it did. Keep in mind though, you're going to miss out on the massive amount of healing that Burning Embers does, but if you're looking for the most damage per second, Venomous Claw on a mag DK is actually actually the morph that you're going to want to take. So in summary, stamina PvP, a lot of hybrid skills, PvE, magic, DPS, or stamina. You have a really tough decision in what you pick here, Venomous Claw or Burning Embers. The Stam DK really struggles in heals per second starting out. If you have Pale Order, you don't even notice this, but without Pale Order, consider taking the morphs that actually heal you, like this here, because it'll make a big difference in your survivability, and you will lose some DPS, but now with the hybridization of the stat, it's not that impactful, and you'll be able to survive and do pretty good damage in two. So I'm on my Stamina Nightblade, and more of the same here for Stamina Nightblade, both PvE and PvP. So I switched my back bar to kind of do the exact same thing I'm doing with my Templar, a heal over time with Resolving Vigor in PvP, and then Healthy Offering for a burst heal. This thing gives the Nightblade the burst heals that it lacks, so I no longer have to use Rally for that and rely on doing a gazillion roly-polies. All right, I switched to my Stamina Nightblade PvE DPS, and two really important skills you're going to want to keep on the bar now is Twisting Path and then Dark Shade. These do cost magic. Typically magic DPS were using them, so magic Nightblades. Now they scale very effectively with Stam DPS. So these two skills in conjunction with Carve, Stampede, on the front bar running maybe even Deadly Cloak gives you a lot of options in terms of what gear you run, what skills you run, and the Stamina Nightblade, even though it's melee, one of the top damage dealers in the game. You got to start thinking in terms of whatever magic-based morph was pretty much relegated to magic builds, you can implement in your Stam builds. This is how it's working now and how you can change your characters, and just check the tooltips because it's looking at whatever is highest, Stam or magic, so it doesn't matter what it costs. So Stam Blade DPS, pick up those two magic morphs, and then Stam Nightblade PvP, look at Healthy Offering for a burst heal. And now maybe the wildest one here is Stamina Sorcerer in terms of PvE and PvP DPS. So, I mean, there's so many things to go over. Haunting Curse. The tooltip on this thing is 13,000 in a PvP build. It costs Magicka, scales off whatever is most effective. So you're going to be seeing Stam Sorcs in PvE and PvP, throwing this into the rotation because it's so dang strong. And you could even use Crystal Fragments as a main spammable or as a way to proc a big, huge burst ability. I couldn't see using this in PvE because the magic cost is just too high. You can't sustain it. But keeping Haunting Curse and throwing that into your rotation in PvE and PvP, really good and effective. So Magic Sorc I hadn't played around with too much, but you're going to have options in terms of morph choices. Instead of using Crystal Frags, you might run Crystal Weapons and do a light attack weave burst damage combo with it. Your Magic Sorc builds might want to take a look at something like Hurricane, or even looking at the morphs on your pets. Just because it deals physical damage doesn't mean you should shy away from the ability even on a magic class, because some of them scale really effectively, and this one, Hurricane, is one that does massive AoE. So if you're playing in Mag Sorc and you're playing in melee range now, don't sleep on this ability, even running DPS both in PvE and PvP, because it's low cost, has a long duration, and does a lot of damage. Now, the Warden is one that I think received a lot of buffs in terms of what you would use in PvP. So I have a Restoration Staff backbar. And how the Warden previously worked is you use something like Arctic Blast for your burst heal, and you had to ramp up your max health in order to have a halfway decent burst heal. Not anymore. So like skills like Enchanted Growth, this thing here is on the tooltip about as even as Arctic Blast is, but I can lower my max HP down from 40 to something like 30,000, and this is going to heal more significantly. Plus, it has a lot of group utility and good sustain component with it as well. So you have a lot more options in what you're going to use to heal yourself as a Warden, not pigeonholed into the high HP pool playstyle, which is going to make it much more survivable and even more damage if that's even possible. So Magnan's, something to notice is Subterranean Assault versus Deep Fissure. So Deep Fissure, very hard to maintain on a magic build because it lasts every 3 seconds. Where Subterranean Assault casts twice, 6 seconds. So now with the hybridization of stats on a Magnan PvE DPS, you should probably take Subterranean Assault because it's easier to maintain. It fires off twice in one cast, and it's going to be easy to maintain that stamina cost of that ability, even on a magic build. So again, you're looking for these things that were limited to just magic DPS or just stamina because it was physical damage or a cost magic or whatever. Another example here is Fetcher Inflection versus Growing Swarm. You can see here that the morph choices, one's magic, one's stamina, and you can see Fetcher Inflection has a much higher tooltip. I'm not saying taking it, but it just gives you options of what you use in your loadout, your morphs, and your skill. Mag DPS, go with Subterranean Assault. Stam base Warden PvP, look at other things to heal you besides just relying on Arctic Blast. Last but not least, the Necro kind of mimics the Warden in a lot of different ways. So I'm on a stand PvP build, and Skulking Blastbones is a morph I'm taking. And the reason why is you would figure, oh, we got to use a stamina one. No. Read the second part of this. Every second the skeleton spends chasing its target increases the damage of the explosion by 10% up to 50% more damage. Thus, if your little skeleton's chasing someone for very, very long, this thing will outperform the stamina-based version of this. Yes, you'll miss out on a heal debuff, but this thing will hit 50% harder. I'd rather have that and nuke everyone in AoE. And mad crows out there, don't sleep on Pestilence Colossus. Yes, it's disease damage, but you're reading another part of this. Pestilence Colossus does increase damage each smash, where Glacial does not. So, mad crow DPS, both in PvE and PvP, take this morph if you want the most damage. Similar to like the Templar, the Stam Crow now has a massive burst healing option with Resistance Flash. This tooltip here unbuffed is 10,000 health, and this, like the other burst heals, I can get around 14,000 crit inside of PvP context. Combine that with the Resolving Vigor heal over time and a Resto backbar fully charged heavy attack getting major mending, you're able to heal burst heal, like a magic build basically, but you have all the mobility and damage that a Stam build has. So there's a lot more to cover. This is my initial impressions per character. I hope you got something out of this. I think PvE DPS, both magic and Stam, is not going to fundamentally change. You might change one morph, one skill, maybe two, throw it in the rotation because now it scales most effectively, but I couldn't see it changing dramatically, but might be too early to tell. Hope you got something out of this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.